Hey YouTube, Kier Twig here, bringing you all my Performage Yugioh deck profile. This is an interesting deck that I've gotten a couple requests for after the Performapal deck that focuses on the easy special summoning that the Performage monsters can do, and this was actually a deck that's been on and off the ban list with a bunch of different cards, and we still have one of the Performage monsters on the ban list, which is Plushfire. It was one of my favorites. I just love the art of the card, and it was definitely a broken Performage used in a bunch of different Pendulum decks, and like I said, I don't see it coming off the list anytime soon without some sort of, errata to the card. But I still wanted to bring you an update to the deck. The main focus of it is, like I said, just the special summoning of a bunch of different Performage monsters, and then going into our main boss monster, which is Performage Trapeze Magician, for extra monster effects on the field. And we do have the use of Pendulum Summoning in the deck as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Performage, it's always, you can say it really quickly, but it's Performage monsters. I run 3 Performage Damage Juggler. During either player's turn, while this card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you can discard this card to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. During either player's battle phase, you can discard this card to reduce the battle damage you would take to 0, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to add 1 Performage monster from your deck to your hand, except for Damage Juggler, and you can only use the effect of Damage Juggler once per turn. So with this, having the option for search power, stopping, damage against yourself from your opponent, it's a great card just for all these different options, being able to set it up in the graveyard and then have the search option for any of the other Performage monsters we run in the deck. It's a definite 3 of. This was another card that was on and off the ban list, but it's a full power 3 now. If this card could be comboed with Plushfire, it would just be that much more broken. So once again, having this card at 3 definitely means we won't be seeing Plushfire off the list anytime soon. Some of the other less known Performage monsters, and one of them being Performage Flame Eater. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for Performage monsters. Also, special summon this card from your hand. If you do, make the effect damage you take 0. If summoned this way, banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is normal or special summon, each player takes 500 points of damage. So being able to have that damage option then can just, trigger your other Flame Eater in your hand, giving you the 2 monsters you need to then overlay into your Xyz monster of the extra deck, which is Performage Trapeze Magician. Having the restriction for the Performage special summon won't limit you at all, for the fact that we have an extra deck monster that can be summoned quite easily with these cards. So that's why I like to run 3 of it, just for the easy special summon onto the field, and you can make full use of its search power with other cards in the deck we're already running. Some easier special summoning power comes in the form of Performage Hat Tricker. I've always loved running this card in any of the decks I've used with just, rank 4 Xyz plays, because if 2 or more monsters are on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. When a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you can place 1 Performage counter on this card, maximum 3, then make this effect damage you take to 0, and when the 3rd Performage counter is placed on this card, this monster's attack and defense becomes 3,300. So it's quite insane that this card can reach some pretty big power numbers. That's why I like to combo it sometimes with Trapeze Magician being the card to target for the option to attack twice, but also just the easy special summon on the field can be the 2nd monster you need for any of your rank 4 Xyz plays when you're having your other monsters on the field. Then just having the overlay option with these cards mean that you can set up other Performage monsters in the graveyard for their search power without having to rely on their discard power. One of the more well-known Performage monsters, and this would probably be the only deck that I would run 3 of it, because in other decks it's more of an engine, and that is Performage Trick Clown. With this one, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 Performage monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but its attack and defense becomes 0. Then you take 1,000 points of damage. You can only use the effect of Performage Trick Clown once per turn. So with this card, you have more and more options to special summon onto the field with this card, but also you have the option to just special summon Trick Clown itself onto the field. But with this deck being a Performage deck, we have plenty of other options in the graveyard to summon back onto the field to make use of, whether it be the attack gain with Hat Tricker or the effect negation with Flame Eater. All these special summon options are viable, but most of the time I just like to summon out Trick Clown, because then if another turn passes and it's sent to the graveyard, as long as I have the life points to pay, I can just special summon it back onto the field again, give me a resource after resource on the field, whether it be just for protection against my opponent or for me to use for some of my other extra deck plays. For the last of the Performage monsters, the only pendulum monster that we have to work with for the Performages, with Plush Fire being the other one, this one, Performage Mere Conductor. Once per turn, you can target one face-up special summon monster on the field. Its attack and defense become equal to its current attack or defense, whichever is lower, until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. So it's a great way just to reduce the attack power of your opponent's card. And once per turn, during either player's turn, you can target one face-up monster on the field, switch its current attack and defense, then take 500 points of damage. The attack and defense change lasts until the end of this turn. So if you're going up against some pesky cards, except for Link monsters, obviously, you can get over the attack power if they have a lower defense power, or vice versa if they're in defense position. But also, we will rely on this card as one of the pendulum scales, because with this card being a scale 3, we can easily pendulum summon out a good majority of other cards on the field for the option, as long as the pendulum scale of the other monster we're running is a high enough scale, which the other pendulum monster, like I said, Plush Fire would have been the other scale to use, but since it is on the ban list, we are relying on one of my choice, being Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser. I like this card for the fact that it is an easy special summon as well. Being a scale 7, it can easily summon out all the monsters we have in the main deck. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your pendulum zone. You can only use this effect of Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser once per turn. So with this card, you have easy special summon for another level 4 on the field. It's not a spellcaster type monster, so it does conflict with the other Performages in that sense, so you can't use it to make Trapeze Magician. But like I said, it's mostly here for the fact that if you have your pendulum scale set up, you can special summon out any other monster from your hand onto the field that much easier, and including other Curtain Raisers if you have those numbers. It's great for that option, and it's really all that it's in here for that play. And for the last of the monsters in the main deck, focusing on the spellcaster lineup, still I run 3 Summoner Monk, having just the option to discard a spell card to special summon a level 4 monster from your deck. You can even go for the Curtain Raiser, but most of the time, I just like to use cards that can provide an engine for more summonings or searches on the field, whether it be Damage Juggler or Trick Clown. What's great also is Damage Juggler can search out your Mere Conductor, so if you have your Curtain Raiser in your hand and you just need that one other scale to finish your pendulum setup, that could be another play to go for that search power. And that's it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. Now, one that I think it's great that it shares the protection play with Performapals is Bubble Barrier, a continuous spell. Each Performapal or Performage monster you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect, or once per turn, and you cannot take any battle damage from attacks involving Performapal or Performage monsters you control. This is just great protection on the field. Once you activate this card, then you're basically free to swing into your opponent's monsters and not have any fear of them basically taking damage if their monster's attack is raised or any of your monsters are lowered, or if your opponent were to swing into any of your Performage monsters. Also, the first attack will protect them from being destroyed by battle, making it that much more easier for you to keep your resources on the field for you to reuse for later on. I only wanted to do this card, though, when I was practicing with 3. I just found myself seeing it more and more. You only need 1 setup on the field, and I do have Barricade Board Blocker in the extra deck to recycle it if it does get destroyed and sent to the graveyard. For more setup on the field with our Spellcaster monsters, I also run 2 Secret Village of Spellcaster and 1 Terraforming. Now, the biggest thing I'd like to see in the future is maybe, some additional Performage support that focuses on the archetype as a whole. But really, with this deck and, its record for having some pretty broken cards, it definitely might be dangerous just with some of that, support. Maybe we'll see some Pendulum monsters, but for then, we're just going for some of the more generic Spellcaster support. Secret Village limits our opponent from using spell cards as long as we have a Spellcaster type monster on the field. So great for that use, and most of the time we just need that card on the field to make use of this field spell. For more of the draw power with some of the additional spellcasters we run on the field, I run 3 Spellbook of Knowledge. You send to the graveyard 1 spellcaster type monster you control, and then to draw 2 cards. You can activate 1 per turn, but this is draw power once again. Setting up more spellcasters in our graveyard can be very, very beneficial depending on which one we set up in the graveyard to use. And then just extra draw power means more and more monsters for whether it be a pendulum summon or just to use later on, also for some defensive plays. And for the one-ofs for these spells, all these spells also being fodder for Summoner Monk, I run 1 Instant Fusion just for a level 4 fusion target to have an additional monster to go for Xyz plays. 1 Monster Reborn, special summoning resources from the graveyard. Foolish Burial can set up Trick Clown in the graveyard, so just having this as a free monster on the field. Call by the Grave to shut down our opponent's resources in the graveyard, and 1 Harpy's Feather Duster to clear back row, as well well as anything that could potentially ruin our Pendulum Summon. If we're going to invest big on the Pendulum Summon, we don't want it to be disrupted, so Harpy's Feather Duster can definitely come in handy with that. And that's it for the spells. We'll now move on to the traps. The Performages do have one trap, and that is Trick Box. If a face-up Performage monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, it's sent to the graveyard. Target one monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase, then special summon one Performage monster from your graveyard to your opponent's side of the field, and during the end phase of this turn, give control of the monster special summoned by this card to its owner. So with this card, you have the option to take one of your opponent's better monsters, giving them a Performage monster, which could potentially deal them more burn damage depending on the one you summon to their side of the field, but also just giving them a lower resource and taking one of theirs means that you can also then use that monster basically for that option of the monster you summon for the Performage monster to come back to your side of the field with the last card effect of this card, meaning you can then use it just for a resource or for more defense against your opponent. With the last of the traps being 3, Call of the Haunted, I thought of Back to the Front for the deck, but more than likely I like just some of the attack options we have for these cards. Trick Clown especially, just for the option of summoning it without its own monster effect and just having 1600 attack to swing into our opponent, or the same logic for Hat Tricker and being able to get this card up to 3300 attack. And that's it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I do want to run more copies of Performage Trapeze Magician. I only have the one copy available, though. So I'll show what other rank 4 Xyz monsters I would take out for additional copies of this. Because, like I said, with the limited option we sometimes have with Flame Eater, you do want to have as many extra deck options available. And I know there are other options for Performage monsters from the anime that hopefully we can see one day as well. I believe they had a fusion monster also, so that would definitely be a great take in different options for the main deck. Also, having a fusion monster to incorporate into the deck. But Trapeze Magician just needs 2 level 4 spellcaster type monsters, and then you never take damage as long as it's less than the attack of this card. Having the option to then make another monster on the field attack twice by detaching an Xyz material can set up Performages in our graveyard to use, but also give that monster, most of the time, like I said, if we have Hat Tricker at maximum power, those 2 swings can be enough along with Trapeze Magician for game. And when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Performage monster from your deck. So be it whatever option you need, having just a free special summon of a Performage monster on the field is resources for you just to go into another extra deck summon. And I also run one number 41 Baguska, one Tornado Dragon, one Abyss Dweller, one Gaga Cowboy, along with one Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon, and one Daigusto Emerald for the generic rank 4 Xyz summons. If I were to run a second and third copy of Trapeze Magician, I would recommend taking out maybe the one Daigusto Emerald and the Dark Rebellion. The burn damage, graveyard shutdown, destruction, and lockdown of all the other rank 4 Xyz I find too important in the deck. So if you were to add more copies, these would definitely be the lineup to take out for more Trapeze Magician. And then lastly, for the Xyz monsters, I just run one Stellar Knight Deltaros. This is here for a power play with 3 or 4 level 4 monsters on the field to then have destruction power against our opponent also, just needing 3 level 4 monsters to make it. For the fusions, I run one Carbonala Warrior. This is for the instant fusion target. If you wanted to run Camion Wizard, if you have that option, it's a level 4 fusion monster, just so you can have that fusion target to go into Performage Magician since you can't with Carbonala Warrior. It's mostly here just for other Xyz or extra deck options. For the Link monsters, I run one Nightmare Cerberus, one Nightmare Phoenix, the Barricade Board Blocker, which we spoke of before, 4 targets for the Bubble Blocker and also our Field Spell. Cross Sheep with the Xyz monsters, it's a very, very good play. Underclock Taker, lowering our opponent's monster's attack can sometimes be enough for some of our other Performage monsters to hit over them. And lastly, the one Nightmare Unicorn. I could run rank 4s, but most of the time I'm investing them in the, I said rank 4s, Link 4s, but most of the time I'm investing them in the Xyz plays, and that's what I want to focus on for those summons. And then as for the go-to plays in the deck, like I said, special summoning is one of your easiest ways to get cards out onto the field. So setting up with a Pendulum Summon and having the other 2 monsters in your hand is one of the more challenging ways, I would say, to summon cards out on the field, but still very viable since there's no limitations to those Pendulum Summons. So after you summon them out, you can easily go for any of the Xyz monsters you wanted to go into. And then once again, depending on what you detach as well, or even if you had that one additional monster in your hand to summon out with the Pendulum play, you can then have the target for your Performage Magician to summon your Hat Trigger and then gain the additional attack for this card against your opponent, while also giving you more search power in your graveyard using Damage Juggler for the banish to search out even more Performage monsters to then summon out onto the field. For other options, once again, remember the Foolish Burial Search with your Trick Clown can easily special summon it onto the field, and then all you need is one other normal summon, and then there is the rank 4 Xyz play again right there. The biggest play is just seeing what you have for the combo to use, and then getting out your main go-to boss monster or any other extra deck monsters you may need for that play. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, I'm definitely glad I took a focus on this. Dennis Macfield was one of my favorite characters from Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, even though he turned out to be a villain. He still had that great performance attitude when doing any of his duels. And until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.